Mr. President, I rise to lend my voice to the motion that these bills introduced by the executive as part of a comprehensive tax reform in our country be read a second time. In doing so, Mr. President, I remind us that by our rules, at this stage, we are to discuss the general principles and not specific details and provisions. And I rise to say that I agree in general the need for a comprehensive tax reform in our country. We don't have an economy that is taxation-based and taxation-driven. It's an economy that is sometimes difficult to track, sometimes difficult to predict, and that's not the best for us. In our system, if you look at the tax ratio, even in African countries, our tax reliance is just about 7% or even less, 7% of our population. Compared to the GDP, the tax to GDP ratio, this country is one of the least. And that doesn't speak to progress, it speaks to stagnation and backwardness. Even the African ratio is 15% tax to GDP. And it's understandable because the founding fathers of this country based economies pre-independence on taxation. Even taxing cattle, they called it jangale in the north. And people were paying. They could plan the economies. And that was when they did major things in all regions. But all of that changed, Mr. President. The moment oil was discovered in the creeks of the Niger Delta, 1957-58, Nigeria found free money in the creeks of the Niger Delta, and we left taxation, just as we left agriculture and manufacturing. So that's where we are. So the attempt by the current administration to let the governments of Nigeria, all levels, be run on tax and tax revenue is something that I fully support. I am aware that some issues have been raised, and that is legitimate. We're a country of diverse people, diverse cultures, diverse expectations, and that's the beauty and the greatness of Nigeria. We cannot expect to be a country that speaks with one voice or sees things only from one perspective. All those are legitimate observations and fears and expectations. All we're expected to do is to harness all of this and enact laws in the national interest, which I believe, following our rules, after the second reading, at the committee stage, when the public hearing is held, everybody who has anything to say will be invited to say, as the chairman of the committee has said. Now, there are issues I am concerned with. Some of these issues that have been raised are also as a result of insufficient consensus building and consultation prior to the introduction. And it's understandable, as a former governor, why some governors express concern at the neck. That is legitimate. That consultation should have taken place. And I believe between now and at the end of our legislative activities, more consultations will happen. But that does not detract from the essence of the legislations that have been sent to us. For example, there is emphasis on derivation according to taxation. And the attempt now is to encourage states to be productive. And why not? A situation where states will abandon their core responsibility to create an enabling environment, attract investment, promote economic activities so that that state can boost its revenues. That's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. I am concerned from where I come from the experiences you and I have, where oil workers are flown into oil platforms in Akwa Ibom, in Eket and Ibono, in Akwa Ibom, or flown into Bonny and other areas in River State, or flown into Brass in Bayelsa and in southern Niger area, and in Delta State in Ogola and Foropa, Ogola and Fokadus. We are interested that this is an opportunity for the payee taxes from those oil workers to be calculated and paid to the oil producing states where those activities are generated, as against being calculated and paid to where the head office is located, as has been the case, where the tax is registered. And from the general principles underlying this bill, as I explained yesterday, there is a move and a commitment by the executive to address that issue of revenue derivation, to ensure that payee taxes, even for the oil workers that are flown in and flown out every day other than work or 2 days, be calculated and paid. If that is done, I think that is a good move that should be supported. The other area in VAT, according to derivation, when we get to the committee stage, we'll look at the specific details. But there's nothing wrong in saying that the telephone calls that are made in Bayelsa or Akwa Ibom or Sokoto or Kano, the VAT on those things that are consumed be calculated and paid to those states. And we are told that that is the essence of these bills. And there's nothing wrong about it. Because VAT is a consumption tax, it's not a production tax. Those who are in the states who consume services, the VAT accruing to those should be calculated and paid. So I'm sure when we look at the details, we'll see whether there's enough mechanism to guarantee transparency and accuracy in terms of administration. Those are some of the things we'll fine-tune. So, Mr. President, this is a good move, and there is an effort also to reduce the burden of taxation on Nigerians. Corporate taxes by the proposal. You read the bills. There's a proposal to reduce corporate taxes from next year, reducing it from the 30% that it is currently to 25%. So that is a good move. And there's also a move to remove the people at the lowest level in terms of their salaries and so on, to exempt them completely from taxation. These are good things in this bill that should be encouraged. Mr. President, it is for these and other reasons, and principally, as a federalist, which I've been all my adult life, I see these bills as a move towards entrenching fiscal federalism in Nigeria, which I fully support. So, Mr. President, I use this opportunity.
The tax reform bill that is on the floor of the National Assembly has generated a lot of reactions and controversies. You might have seen clips of senators debating over this bill, and it seems like the northern senators are not happy with this bill. They are asking that this bill be trash. Some persons are equally saying that this is another means of Bola Ahmed Tinubu milking money away from the Nigerian people. Let me try as much as possible to explain this new tax reform bill to you dispassionately. The President Bola Ahmed Tinubu tax reform is a way of overhauling the Nigerian tax system. It is aimed at easing the financial burden on small businesses and low-income earners while increasing contributions from wealthier citizens. This new tax reform bill is designed to stimulate economic growth, to reduce inequality and create a more transparent and efficient tax structure by taxing the wealthy people more than they tax the low-income earners. To make it more understandable, I've divided a tax system into sections. Section 1 is small businesses are exempted from taxes. It means that under the new reforms, businesses with an annual turnover of less than 50 million will no longer pay taxes. That means if your annual business turnover is between 0 naira to 49.99 million naira, you will no longer pay taxes. This policy is intended to support small businesses by reducing their financial obligations, allowing them to focus on growth and expansion. This means that small businesses will have more money to reinvest in their operations, hire more staff, and improve their services. This will also encourage more individuals to start their own businesses. It will foster innovation and job creation. But of course, this comes with its own disadvantage. It means that many businesses will be exempted from taxes and the government might lose significant revenue, which will impact its ability to fund public services like education, healthcare, and infrastructure. And of course, the larger companies, they might try to manipulate their account to fall below the 50 million threshold, thereby avoiding tax illegally. If the tax burden is being shifted to larger businesses and the wealthy, it could discourage investment if it is not managed carefully. Another aspect that this bill is trying to achieve is to exempt most workers from income tax. In this new bill, more than 90% of workers in both public and private sector will no longer pay income tax. This aim is to increase disposable income for the majority of Nigerians, especially those in lower and middle income brackets. This means that workers will have more money to spend on essential goods and services, which can boost local economies. It also means that lower income families who struggle with basic needs will benefit from higher take-home pay. It will improve their quality of life. When people spend more money, it could lead to higher demand for goods and services, and this will stimulate the economy. And of course, this also comes with its disadvantage. Income tax is a major source of government income. Exempting most workers could lead to a significant drop in revenue, and it will affect the funding of public projects and services. With fewer people paying taxes, the responsibility shifts to the wealthy, and this could potentially lead to tax evasion. Another side of this reform bill is that most basic goods will be VAT-free. Essential goods consumed by low-income earners such as food, medicine, and basic household items will be exempted from the value-added tax VAT. This policy aims to make essential items more affordable. Removing VAT on essential goods reduces their price, making life more affordable for low-income families. It means that this policy is also shielding the poorest Nigerians from inflation and price hikes. The downside of this is that VAT is a significant revenue stream. Exempting many goods could create a financial gap, and it could affect national and state budgets. And when government budget is being affected, the government might raise VAT on non-essential goods, potentially burdening middle-income earners. Another thing that this new tax reform tends to achieve is to eliminate multiple small taxes. The reform is proposing scrapping over 50 small overlapping taxes that businesses currently pay. This simplification aims to make the tax system more business-friendly and reduce compliance costs. Eliminating multiple taxes reduces the financial burden on businesses, which can translate into lower price for consumers. This could make the environment tax-friendly, and it will attract both local and foreign investors. But here are the downside of this. Many of these small taxes are what is being used to fund local government projects. Eliminating them could lead to budget shortfalls at the local levels. This could also give the federal government more power, and it will reduce the financial independence of the states and the local government. This new tax reform is also going to be collecting tax based on consumption location. VAT will now be collected based on where goods and services are consumed rather than where the company's headquarters are located. This ensures that tax revenue benefits the region where economic activity actually takes place. For instance, There is no how the North who destroy alcoholic beverages will benefit from the proceeds of tax collected from alcoholic beverages from the South. It's not going to be possible anymore. Again, Lagos will not be benefiting from the tax of oil companies that are drilling oil from Niger Delta. It means that regions with high consumption will receive more tax revenue, which can be used for local development projects. Now here is the downside of it. Wealthier regions with higher consumption rate will benefit more, and this will potentially widen the gap between the rich and the poor states. This new tax bill seeks to take higher taxes for the wealthy. Wealthy people in Nigeria will face higher tax rates, while lower and middle income earners will see reduction or exemption of their tax rate. This progressive system aims to reduce income inequality. Higher taxes on the wealthy can help redistribute wealth, funding programs that benefit lower income citizens. It means that the government can generate substantial revenue without burdening the poor. The downside of it is that the wealthy individuals might seek ways to avoid taxes, such as moving their assets offshore or using loopholes. Now, this could also discourage domestic and foreign investment, and it could potentially affect the economy. Again, these wealthy people who are manufacturers could shift the burden of the tax they pay to the government to the final goods and services. This could potentially lead to the high price of goods and services in the market. This new reform tax also seeks to eliminate state consumption taxes. What this means is that state government will no longer collect their own consumption tax. It will create more uniform tax structure nationwide. And of course, a uniform tax system reduces confusion and makes compliance easier for businesses. The downside of it is that states that rely heavily on consumption taxes might face financial shortfalls, and it could potentially affect local services. Remember, this tax system will give the federal government more power to collect tax. This means that states may become more reliant on the federal government allocation, and it will reduce their financial autonomy and decision-making power. But again, this tax reform wants to see that the states and the local government will get more VAT revenue. In this new tax bill, the federal government share of VAT will drop from 15% to 10%, while states and local government will receive 90%. This will definitely mean that the states will have more money for developmental projects. But you definitely know that Nigerian politicians are not good with public funds. Giving them more money will lead to more looting. And of course, the citizens will be the one to suffer for the mismanagement of these funds. Another thing you need to know regarding this new tax reform bill is that there's going to be a lower income tax for those earning less than 1.7 million naira monthly. Workers earning less than 1.7 million naira per month will pay less income tax, which increases their take-home pay. Now, I can go on and give you more of the importance and the disadvantage of this tax reform. But just like Mr. Peter Obi has said, this tax reform bill should be open for more public scrutiny and debate. It shouldn't be hurriedly passed. Opposing voices such that we are having from the northern senators should not be shut out. Everyone should be carried along with this tax bill. At the end, we hope that the best thing is done for Nigeria and Nigerians. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.